You're on mute.
Okay, we can do that.
There you go. So it's 11 p.m. there in Australia, is that right?
That's correct.
You are a champion.
Well, I'm pretty excited to be talking to you Londoners at this time of night. Wow.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you on here. And why don't we just jump right in? And first of all, just want to welcome everybody here to, this is actually the very final broadcast. We've done about a dozen of these now. And originally, they were set up to kind of reach out to pastors and sort of help them get through this whole pandemic. And we got a lot of good feedback, and there were so many good things. I thought, man, why don't we just open it up even to the Genistar reps? So I know that on here, we've got people from Genistar, we have pastors on here, we have church leaders, we got all kinds of different people with us. And I'm really excited about our final session that we're doing here. And then in September, we're going to be starting a series with Rabbi Daniel Lapin and a coaching session for 12 weeks. So hopefully, if you're part of Genistar, you'll be in on that. If you're not, let the person know that originally invited you on here, and we'd be happy to include you in on the coaching from just an incredible guy. If you ever get a chance, go on to YouTube and look up Rabbi Daniel Lapin. Well, my good friend, John Sikkema, is with us today all the way from Australia. And John and I have known each other now for, John, I think it's been about 2 years ago, wasn't it? A year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that, that we started chatting.
Longer than that, I think, but we did, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I think we started talking, but we met probably a couple of years ago.
And of course, I've known your daughter and son-in-law who live here in the UK. I've known them for many years. And in fact, Jess, your daughter, was really the one that helped me kind of put the final touches on my book. And what convinced me of using her is I read your book, and I'm hoping that you'll talk a little bit about that today, as far as, what the book, is about and kind of your journey. But before I bring you on, and I'm just going to kind of turn it all over to you, John, I just want to share a real quick story, and it's actually in my book. In my early 40s, I just kind of hit this spot in my life where it was like, okay, I've made loads of money, I'm worth a few million, and what do I really want to do with the rest of my life? And my pastor suggested I read this book that is called Halftime by Bob Buford. And I read the book, and I got to tell you, it just gave me a whole new vision about where my life could go into the future. So where I was stuck, it really did help me. And of course, John, you're the CEO of Halftime in Australia and have worked with us here in the UK on it also. But just really, really appreciate not only your business background, but just your mentoring and really what you do in order to help empower other people. So, John, I'm just going to kind of turn the program over to you. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here, and it's interesting times globally, obviously, because of the pandemic, and interesting to see how we've had worse things going back in history, but for us in our lifetime, it's been a major thing. But despite that, there's some really good things happening, and amazing how many businesses are being innovative and creative through this time. So, but anyway, look, you've asked me to come on and share my story, and I often think that when I'm asked to do that, I often think, okay, it doesn't matter how riveting my story is or how unriveting it is, I don't know if that's a word or not, but how much will people remember in 12 months' time? And because I listen to a lot of talks as well, and so I've come to realise that what my job is here today is to be a catalyst for I can see there's 88 people participating. My sole purpose, I believe, is to be a catalyst for your story, not my story. But I want to share my story. Hopefully it'll trigger you to think that you also have a very unique story. And I believe each one of us has. So that's my my objective today. And if I'm in a crowd with an audience, often what I'll do is I'll to highlight this fact that it's really about your story and my story. To get the audience participating, which is really not that easy to do by Zoom, but I'm going to try anyway, Jeff. I'm going to take a risk here. Could you grab your mobile phone and put it up to your ear? Up to your ear. So I want to pretend that I'm ringing you, and this is the conversation. So I'm ringing up. I'm actually ringing from Hollywood, and g'day, Jeff. Is that Jeff Letts in London?
It is.
It is. Great, Jeff, great. It's Steven Spielberg here from Hollywood, and we've done some research, and we've come up with that we actually want to make a blockbuster of your life story. And a benefactor's come along and put $100 million on the table. And so I'm going to be in London next week. I've got a few things that people are going to see, but I'm just wondering, would you be interested in us doing that? And if you were, I'd like to come along on Friday and take you and your wife to lunch to chat about that. How does that sound?
Unbelievable.
Okay, well, we'll see you on Friday.
I'm speechless.
I'm speechless, right? Well, it's going to be extraordinary. We've got a script that we're working on already, and we're going to really just share the story to the world because it's such an amazing story. So anyway, I'll see you on Friday. Thanks for taking my phone call. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Stephen.
Right. So the thing is, you're now going to be waiting next Friday and you're going to think, this is ridiculous. Is my story worth being made into a blockbuster? Is going to be the first thing you're going to be thinking. You're going to have doubts and you're going to be saying to your wife, wow, what are we going to say? We're going to have to embellish the story. But the interesting thing is, if we dig deep, all of us have an interesting story. And if you get people with 1 or 2 beers in them, it's amazing, and you get them going. It's amazing how we can come up with stories and interesting stories. And the thing is, you can't change the script from when you were born till now. But part of what we're actually going to do with this blockbuster is we're going to tell a factual story of your life up till now. But we're going to work with you to write the script from now until the day you die. So assuming you're going to live to 100, I know that's your objective, and you're only a very young 55-year-old at the moment. So we're going to work with you on the script for the next 45 years. Now, is that okay? Is that going to be something worthwhile doing? Because the problem that we've found is that most of us, sadly, don't think our story is worth telling. Mm. And we live our lives thinking, my big brother, he's more successful. My dad is more successful. I got an uncle. I'd like to be like this movie star. I'd like to be like this sports star. I'd like to be like this person at work or this person at school who got much better grades than me. So we live in a situation where we hero worship other people. And the time and energy we spend on that, we actually don't spend on ourselves. Now, and we're debiting ourselves. So we're slowing down our own potential by wasting our energy there. So just imagine, and I know there are many people listening that would spiritually have a biblical belief, in the Bible, what it actually says there. And so the whole thing is that it says we're being created in God's image. And so really what I want to share today is my story, but I really want you to think about everybody who's listening, the whole 88, about your story and your blockbuster. And we've all had good and bad in our stories. We've had failure and success, but just think what your story could be about. And half time, we actually want to talk about your story. But before I get into that, I'll share you a little bit of my story anyway, just to get the ball rolling. So I was born in Holland, not too far, just over the ditch from you guys in the UK, in a place called Amsterdam. And my father worked at Schiphol Airport. And at age, he spent the war years in America. He didn't like Holland after the war, so he wanted to immigrate to America, but my mum didn't want to go. But we had some relatives in Australia. So my parents immigrated to Australia when I was 5 years old. And so I arrived here at 5 years old, and I can still remember that on the boat coming across from England to Australia, it's my first memory of being competitive, because they had a game on the boat with all the young kids, and there was about 20 of us, and we had to get the blocks that were out of the play boxes we had and put them in as quick as possible. The person that won would get a box of chocolates. Well, guess who won? I did. So my competitive spirit was sort of confirmed. And so the other thing that happened is when I got to Australia, I didn't really enjoy school much. But at age 14, I was sort of what I would call financially independent, in the sense of I used to do a paper round every morning and on Saturday night. School holidays, I was fruit picking. And lived across the road from a golf course. So when it wasn't footy season, I'd be over there caddying. And I found if I caddied, I could earn 6 shillings in those days for a round of golf. This is going back many decades. And I found, though, that if I spent the 4 hours looking for golf balls instead of caddying, I could earn $2. So I quit caddying, but then I realised after a while, if I cut out the pro and sold them direct to the golfer, I could sell them for $3. So my first entrepreneurial business skills were honed when I was 14. Anyway, I didn't go to university. At the end of year 12, I went into banking, finance, and at age 23, I was running my own business, selling insurance. And by age 26, I left Tasmania and moved to Victoria. Tasmania is a small island off Australia with 500,000 people. The mainland, the big cities, Melbourne, Sydney. So I went to Melbourne, and at age 26, I was the top salesman out of 300 people selling insurance, selling it cold, just using the telephone book and going to orphan policyholders and cold calling the houses on each side. So I cut my teeth on running my own business, cold calling at an early age. So I went at success pretty hard. So you can probably say by the time I was 40, I was CEO of my own company. I had about 50 staff. I was moved back to Tassie to have our children, and I had a dream house overlooking a beach and a golf course. I had a holiday home. I was the largest shareholder. Kids were at private school. So you could sort of say I had it all. But the reality is were cracks appearing, and I was having migraine headaches and going home 2 nights a week and going straight to bed and not eating with the family. I was also losing 30K a month because we had the recession we had to have, as our treasurer called it, back in 87 to 1990, around that period. And so here I am, I've got health issues, I've got this debt on paper, I'm bankrupt. And then one day my wife says, John, you're not the fun guy I married, you're a workaholic, you're working 80 plus hours a week. I don't see you, the kids don't see you. Unless you change, I want out. I want a divorce. So my world's starting to fall apart, and all the dreams and whatever that I thought I had were coming. And then I had a car accident, and I used to work 200 miles from where I used to live, and work 1 day a week. And one day I used to go up there every Friday religiously, driving this distance. One day I went round a corner, and I'm heading straight for a truck, and I closed my eyes and I thought my life's over, and I swung the steering wheel and I bounced off the side of this truck, and I'm sitting 100 metres up the road, and I'm thinking, how did I survive that? I should have died. I must have some guardian angels looking after me. And I realised that my life, there was something more to my life, and it was a massive wake-up call. And I started searching and saying, well, what's the point of all this? What am I doing? And after that car accident, one day I went to a talk in my local church, and there was a bikie, a God Squad bikie, a Harley Davidson bikie, and he said, if I could find 100 businessmen to give me $1 million each, we could change this nation. He got my attention. I thought, wow, that's me. That's me. I'm one of those guys. I forgot temporarily the desperately unhappy wife, the debt I had, the health issues I had. And I remembered when I was 14 walking on the golf course one day, I had this conversation in my head was, why am I so blessed? I'm financially independent. I live idyllically by a beach. My parents are married happily. We've got our own home. I've just been to a private school. I've got it made, but it's not fair. Look at so many other people haven't got what I got. You know what I'm going to do? When I turn age 50, I'm going to spend the rest of my life helping others. I forgot about that because I was an introvert. I didn't tell anybody. I thought I was going mad a bit, this conversation in my head. It never happened before. I was going to a church. I believed in God and Jesus, but I didn't understand the Holy Spirit. And I'd had a spiritual experience. But when John Smith, the bikie, 26 years later, when I'm 40, mentioned that dream that I'd had buried inside of me for 26 years came alive. And I thought, wow, that's really me. And then a few minutes later, I heard virtually an audible voice saying, John, I did not create you for you to be successful. I created you to help others succeed. And if you do that, you'll be truly successful. Well, the lights came on. I thought, oh, you got it all back to front. And it made me realize that I needed to make some changes in my life. And all of a sudden I got this download of all these things I wanted to change. And I thought, oh, I need pen and paper. I'll forget. It's a bit like when you wake up in the night, sometimes you have these ideas. If you don't write them down in the morning, you think, what was that great idea I had? I forgot. So it was a small church. And I thought, well, I'm a respectable business person. I'm not coming up for an altar call and sort of going to say I haven't got my life together and I need to change. But I decided to race home, went into my study in my home, which I live close by, wrote a pen on all the things and changes I realised I had to make in my life. I wrote down. I actually wrote down 13 things. I won't go through them now, but some of them was stop trying to change my wife to suit my success and help her be who God created her to be. Make myself available to work in the local community. Like my kids were going to a private Christian school. I was involved in a local church, but I was non-engaged. I wasn't a muser. I'm not a Sunday school teacher. I was quite introvert. And I thought, I've got to give back to my local community. So I wrote that down. I wrote down that I'm going to start taking risks and stop playing safe. Just a whole bunch of things that I felt I needed to change in my life. I'd been a fairly passive, unengaged Christian. One of the things I wrote down is I'm going to start reading the Bible as God's business plan to man. So I wrote all those things down and put them in my drawer and shut it, didn't tell anybody, but then I started acting on those changes. Unbelievable things happened because I cut my hours back from 80 to 50. I got involved in my local community because the local school my kids were going to had some financial problems and were losing $1 million a year. And a friend of mine said, John, could you become the treasurer? And I thought, I didn't even like school. God is testing me here. Anyway, I felt that one of the things I wrote down was stop making decisions and then asking God to ratify them. When I want to make decisions, slow down and get counsel from other people and put it to God in prayer. And so I had a piece that I should go and do this role at the school. Well, it ended up being a 20-hour-a-week job. The finances were in a mess. The school was badly run. I used my business planning and strategic planning skills to help the school work out that we needed a new principal and a new bursar. And so I used an external consultant and used personality profiling and assessing. Both of them resigned and left. I told the treasurer he was meant to be a boring bean counter and not be entrepreneurial, and he kept spending money when he shouldn't. I said, why don't you go and start your own business? He left, started his own business. He's still there today, 25 years later or whatever. And then my local church had 100 people left. After I finished the school project, the same friend said, John, can you come and help because the church is not going anywhere? So I was pretty uncomfortable with these pillars of the church. I'm a business guy, a money guy. But anyway, I said, okay. And I ended up helping them put a plan together and went back to the Bible and said, why does the church exist? And they'd been navel gazing and looking internally rather than looking at what they could do to make a difference in the community. So I ended up with a 30-page document. I put them all in small groups, met with them twice a week, ended up with a plan, implemented it. We hired one pastor, then two, then three. We grew the numbers from 2 to 600. And I realized that the skills I had in business could be used in the not-for-profit area, in the community. So my wife saw a new John because I cut my hours back from 80 to 50, put 20 hours into the school for 5 years, for 7 years in the church, 20 hours, but 10 hours more at home. But I was involved where my kids were involved. So my marriage turned around and I've got a fantastic marriage today by the grace of God. I've got great relationships with my children. But I was at the brink of losing it all. And I've seen many other business people lose because often we need cancer or we need bankruptcy or we need something to happen before we'll change. And so what I had to do was change and move. I had my business up here, and I had my family down here, and I had my plan for my life that I believe God had prepared for me down here. So I had to find out what is my life purpose. I found my life purpose in that defining moment that I'm created to help others succeed. And when I do that, I'll be truly successful. So and then to bring my family up here with my life purpose, and then the business align that with my life purpose to become the rocket fuel to propel me to do what I'm on the planet for, to leave the legacy. And so I then went through some amazing things, because I went on a holiday or a leadership conference actually to Hawaii, and met this Indian on the plane and asked him what he was doing. And he said he was a church planter. And I said, yeah, what's that? Well, yeah, in India, I'm planting churches. And I said, well, we've just planted a church where, with my local church, and because we had unhappy children leaving home, and we developed something called Vision 100 to plant 100 churches. And I was right behind that, because I felt that was the way to multiply and grow church. And he said, I asked him how many churches he'd planted, and I'd planted one, and I was feeling pretty good with myself and patting myself on the chest a bit. And he said, he was 20 years younger than me, and he said he'd planted 200. And I went, oh, you know, so what's happening in India that's not happening in Australia? So anyway, just amazing things happened over that 10 years, because the business grew by 40% per annum from over that next 7 or 8 years. I was able to spend that time in the community. I even started a lunchtime across the road from where I worked, a pub, and I called it Food for Thought. And I got my local pastor to share out of the good book how that related to business. And I would invite people who worked for me and say, Jeff, what about coming to lunch with me next week, Tuesday? And I've got a friend of mine doing a talk, and I'll buy you lunch. And he'll share out of the good book how that relates to problems and issues. And so I saw I had 20 people over 2 years come and hear the message of hope that the Bible provides. And these 2 people gave their life to Jesus through that process. And others I'm still talking to and seeing their lives change. So I found that my business became a great platform to make a difference and transform lives. And we then did an orphanage in Thailand, because we had a conference in Phuket. And I felt so bad, because we took all the 5-star benefits and gave nothing back. And on the way in the bus back from Phuket to the airport, I was really convicted we had to give something back. So at the next company conference, I said, why don't we build an orphanage in Thailand for street kids and children that are in prostitution? And in the space of an hour, we raised 80,000 to build an orphanage in Thailand at our next conference. So I find everyone's got generosity in their heart. They just need someone to help open it up and give them an opportunity. And I just found through the business, I could make a difference rather than just make money and build a great business, but I could also have an impact in the community. So after that trip to Hawaii, this Indian guy said, well, my vision is actually to plant 100,000 churches. Would you like to come and chair my board and help me do that? Because I haven't got business experience. And if you could help build the infrastructure, and I want to build a global organization who will support this. And so I went home to my wife, who literally 10 years before, because I was now about 50, 10 years before she'd talked divorce, I said, darling, I think we should sell our house and dream holiday home and property up the road where we keep our horses and animals, and go and help this guy and start again. And she said, yep, let's do that. So amazing how my life turned around, and the business actually grew at 40% per annum over that period. And at 2 months into my 50th year, I was able to sell the business, and we sold it to a listed company on the stock exchange. And this is going back a bit. And we sold it for 40 mil, and I was the largest shareholder and CEO. So here I was, the dream that God put in my heart when I was 14, he delivered it when I was 50, so I could spend the rest of my life helping others. So since then, the last 15 years or so, I've been dedicated to helping other people find their purpose. And so we ended up selling the dream house, the holiday home, the farm, and we sold up everything and moved to Melbourne, which is nearly 1,000 kilometres away. And we started again, and left our friends and left everything behind. But I've just been on a roller coaster since then, because I've had so much fun. There's so many great people in the business world who just need someone to walk alongside them and help and coach and mentor them. And so one of the things that I found, people ask me to do talks and share my story like today. And so people, when I'd share my story, they'd say, oh, John, you should write a book and, share this. So I wrote a book called Enriched Redefining Wealth. And Ken Blanchard was nice enough to endorse it for me, and I would have had Jeff, you do it, but I didn't know you at this time. But I got the Deputy Prime Minister to endorse it for me and a bunch of others. But one of the things I found in the book was that I did as I was doing talks was people saying, John, this is all great, but I'm not you, but I've been focused on success, but I don't know how to move to more having a legacy and living a life of significance. So I came up with some principles to move from success to significance. So if the people who are listening or tuned in, there's 150 people online. Jeff, you must have a lot of friends. If they've got a pen and paper handy, I can go through these really quickly just now as I'm sharing, if that's okay.
By the way, John, we have 150 because I sent them a picture of you and they said how good looking you are.
Well, I must have noticed that you must have done the one without my tooth missing because my tooth broke off the other day. So,
oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
But anyway, that's cool. So principle one, so these are the principles that I believe if you want to finish well and make the second half year better than the first. And half-time does not have to be at half your age. It could be at any time. It's more when you feel, I want to make some changes like in a game because when I'm not winning or I'm feeling frustrated or whatever. So I'll go through these principles quickly. It'll probably take me a couple of minutes, but I think it's worth just sharing because I often find people want some practical takeaway and just one of these might be of helpful to you. But these are the 7 that I felt were important to me. And chapter 11 in my book just speaks on those. And the first principle is change doesn't just happen. Having an overriding desire for change coupled with unfulfilled goals and dreams are really important, because if you don't have a overriding desire for change or you don't have unfulfilled goals or dreams, it's quite difficult to change. So we need to face up to that reality and be honest with ourselves. So that's the first thing. Change doesn't just happen. We need to have an overriding desire for change coupled with unfulfilled goals and dreams. And that's why often we have to stop and start dreaming again because we're so busy. We don't have time to dream, or we've forgotten our dreams. Principle number 2, you are wired to help others. I believe endorphins are released when chemicals are released that are healthy for us when we help others. So we're actually wired, we were created to do that. So acting upon that realization that I've been created to help others, not just helping and looking after myself. And there's a movie on that about Pass It On, which is brilliant, very simple, but it gets the message across. Principle number 3 is that generosity is more than writing a check. Now, being Dutch, as you would know, some of the Dutch people on the other side there, I was taught to be thrifty. Not stingy, but thrifty. But I had selective generosity. And I've come to realise that we were created to have generosity 24/7. I do remind people, I'm not talking about a spirit of stupidity, but a spirit of generosity where not just with money is probably the least, but with our time and skill, just an attitudinal thing that I want to give some of my time away. I want to give some of my skills away. And if we've got resources and money, sure. But money's often given as guilt to alleviate, and we give a token. We only give generously often if we buy into a vision or an idea. But principle 3 is that generosity is more than writing a check. I had to learn that. Principle 4, there's actually no limit to your potential. And we can forget about that because when we're 20, we've got a cheer squad. When we're 20, we've actually got people that cheer us on. We've got people that encourage us. We've got parents, we've got family, we've got friends, we've got a school teacher, we've got a football coach, we've got a boss. All these people cheering us on. And if we fall over, we're like a puppy dog. People say, you'll be right. And we just get up again. But when we turn 50, the magical number of 50, there's often no one left in our cheer squad. Parents might not be alive, or we actually don't have the cheer squad we had when we were 20. So people say, oh, don't know, Jeff, you should do that. What will people say if that works out? Or you might lose your house. Well, at 20, you don't have a house. So no limit to your potential is a very important principle if you want to change and move from a pure success to a legacy significance focus. Principle number 5 is retirement is not an option. You've got to remember when the retirement age was made at 65 or whatever it was, people were living less than 65. And actually, if you want to go to the good book I think it's in Deuteronomy, there's nothing in the whole Bible that talks about, it actually says that idleness is the devil's playground. We're not meant to retire and stop and just do nothing and be a burden to our government and friends and whatever. We ought to try and be productive and keep generating. Doesn't mean we have to work 80 hours a week. We might start working 2 or 3, or we might work for a volunteer organisation, but we should be productive. So in Deuteronomy, it's the only place in the Bible that talks about retirement, is some Levi priests who are 50, and it suggests they should retire, but it suggests they become temple guards. It doesn't say just go and smoke a pipe and sit on the back porch, or just go camper vanning or never-ending holidays. No, it actually says you can become a cheer squad or encouragers or mentors to the new priests, but maybe you talk less and just encourage others. And principle number 6 is there's no perfect time or perfect moment. And we live in an age where people want all the ducks lined up, and there's no, and we've got to de-risk the project. You know, there's constantly, I don't know, I do investments. The first thing the accountant says to me, John, have you de-risked the project? Well, in a way, when I listen to the accountant, I think, why would I even do this project? Because there are risks. So there's no perfect time or perfect place. But those of you who believe in the Bible and read the Bible, it talks about steps of faith. Faith is when you can't see something, but when you believe and trust God. So there's no perfect time to get started. So don't wait for it. You've got to step in and take some risks. You did when you were 20, when you were 15, when you were 25. Why have you stopped doing it now? So we need to take steps of faith. Principle number 7, which a lot of people don't like, is accountability is your friend. Become vulnerable and accountable and get help. Look for mentors and coaches who can speak into your life. 90% of what they'll do will be encouragement, but 10% might be challenging and keeping you accountable on what you promised you were going to do. So anyway, they were principles that I came up with that when I've been sharing, that they're take away things that you might out of this session this morning here, or this afternoon, it's 2 o'clock in your time, that might be helpful. So anyway, yeah, we moved and moved to start again in my early 50s. And so what I've been doing then is been coaching and mentoring people to move from success to significance. And that's where the organisation Half Time came from. So just Half Time, as Jeff spoke before, there's a guy in Dallas called Bob Buford who in his mid-40s was running a very successful cable TV business. And what happened was that he had one son, and he got that phone call that no parent would like to receive, saying, Ross, your son has drowned in a Grand Rapid type river. And so Bob Buford was confronted with the reality that this business he was building, he couldn't pass it on his son, who was doing like Harvard studying and was going really well, and he was the obvious person he was grooming to take over. So he was left with a real challenge. So what he talks about in his book, Half Time, which some of you might like to get hold of, what he talks about is that he then hired a coach, and he actually says the coach was an atheist and Bob was a practicing Anglican. And he said, Bob, I want you to go away, and if you could only commit the rest of your life to one thing, what would it be? And so Bob went away and thought, well, yeah, I could just keep earning lots of money and just be philanthropic. Or maybe, yeah, there was something else. He felt he wanted to release the latent potential of the American church because they didn't grow and they weren't used to having business people help them build infrastructure. So he ended up ultimately hiring Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, and ended up with a parallel career for a while where he kept his business going, but he started spending half his time helping not-for-profits build infrastructure so they could grow. And he ended up with about a 25, 30-year partnership with his mentor, Peter Drucker. So the Half Time book is a fantastic book on a concept of moving your mindset, not just on success, but to significance. And he's got lots of great little examples in there to help you work through your halftime or a period where you want to recalibrate and develop a plan for your life. So that's a really valuable organisation that's going around the world now. It's a movement. We've started in the UK a few years ago, and we have what's known as a halftime round table, where you can meet with maybe 8 to 10 business people on a monthly basis, and you work through a workbook to what we talk about is slowing down, making eye contact with God, and getting your unique assignment. So in halftime, we actually talk about, and this is a Druckerism. Those of you who know Peter Drucker or have read some of his stuff, he died some years ago at 95 or thereabouts. Peter Drucker actually said that today we have life 1 and life 2. Life 1, 120 years ago, people lived to 48. Now we're living to 85, 90. And so we're over-prepared for life 1, but under-prepared for life 2. And there's no university for the second half. So what Halftime as an organisation has done is we've got coaches around the world that can coach you one-on-one or in groups of 6 to 8 to 10. And we give you a workbook to work through. And we talk very much about Ephesians 2:10. So those of you who are online now who know Ephesians 2:10, Ephesians 2:10 actually says in the New Living Translation that we are God's masterpiece. And so my question to you would be, what's a masterpiece? And a masterpiece, if we look at a house, I don't know, it might be a £5 million house, might be a masterpiece. It's not every house in the street. If we think of paintings like Rembrandt, I think that's worth something like 300 million American dollars or pound. I'm not sure the exact figure, but it's a lot of money. And so the Bible actually says not only are we made in God's image, but we are God's masterpiece. And I love the English writer, C.S. Lewis, who talks about in the Screw Tape Levels how cunning the devil is, and he convinces us that and gives us that fear, and I'm not good enough, and I want to be, like I said earlier on, be someone else and not be who I am. And so first of all, at halftime, we want you to, too many of us, like if we visit, say, our grandparents' house after they died, and we go through and look at most of the furniture and we think most of it's no good, we can take it to the tip or it's not worth much. We go up into the attic and we find this linen cloth over something that looks like maybe a painting. We take the linen cloth off and we go, wow, this is an amazing painting. What's it doing up here in the attic? It's actually worth more than the whole house. Well, I think a lot of us, especially as Christians, we are like that painting up in our grandparents' house with a linen cloth. We're really not out living out our faith and being a blessing to others. And so part of what we do at half time is we're trying to get the crap off and dust it off and clean it up and get each of us in a place where we can be useful to make the world a better place and be a blessing wherever we are, at work, at home, in our sporting clubs or in our community, wherever we are. So part of half time is we want to help you, have that confidence that you are God's masterpiece. And the Bible actually says that we should not give up the habit of meeting together. And so we need to meet together as business people, encourage one another. Now, I know Jeff does this extremely well. Part B of Ephesians 2:10 is, and this is very deep, it actually says that before we were born, God created good works in advance for us to do. So you actually think, wow. So basically there was a job description for us before we were born. Now, when we're born, we don't come out with that job description or whatever. So what is that? Is that generic or is it the same for everyone? Well, I believe it's different for everyone. Well, how do I know what my job description is? Well, that's what we do at half time. We try and get you to slow down And as what Bob Buford talks about is archaeology. Often we've got signposts and things that have happened in our past that would give us a guide to what we should be doing, but we're too busy to listen, and we're often not able to differentiate what C.S. Lewis would talk about is the cunningness and the subtleness of the devil, who's stealing, snatching and destroying. And we've got the Holy Spirit whispering into our hearts and minds, and we're not able to differentiate. So we actually have to slow down and have that intimacy so we're actually able to differentiate. And yes, someone's asked a question here on Q&A. Is Halftime UK organisation only open to Christians? No, it's not. We do this program with all people from all walks of life, male, female, different faiths, but it is biblically based. But it's not about trying to get someone to go to church. It's a matter of realising who we are, and it's in very common language. And so we've got business people running this who will coach and mentor you. So a couple of the other things that we talk about at Halftime is we talk about getting clear and getting free and getting going. And so first thing is, if we're not clear about our purpose, so the first thing is to find out what is our life purpose. And it's easy to find that out if you've got a coach or someone to mentor you or in a group. So we actually work that out with a whole myriad of exercises, because we give you a 100-page workbook, and we've got 40 different case studies and tools to help you reflect and dig deep. And by doing it in a group, you actually encourage one another, and it's very powerful. And so the first thing is to help you get clear. Then once you're clear, you should have passion and energy. And we talk about the 3 C's. So we're really about working out at your core, what's your passion? What's your strength? And what is your mission statement? What could your mission statement be? Then we talk about capacity. Most of us have got a problem with time and money. Oh, if I only had more time, had more money, then I'll be able to do all the things that I wanted to do. It's usually a cop-out. Once you get clear about where you want to go, it's like going on a holiday. You say, look, we want to go to this place on a holiday, and you get all the kids and everyone. Then everyone starts cutting costs and saving and making sure, because you're so excited about going on this holiday. So really, time and money is a cop-out because we lack a clear plan that excites us. And so someone here is asking, is there a charge for the coach in the group? Yes, there is a charge, there is a fee, and we'll certainly be able to help you know those details, in time. But getting clear about your mission statement, overcoming this issue of time and money, and that's why we do that in a group. And we also want to create some headspace or some spiritual overflow, because if you've got no room, no capacity, Peter Drucker would say, no margin, no mission. And so we really need to create margin. And most of us will waste time watching television or being inefficient on things. I was working 80 hours a week. To change to 50 hours a week, what did I have to do? I had to change my management and leadership style. I had to start empowering people rather than being a control freak. I actually just had to sometimes employ more people at a lower cost than myself. And so I was able to create more revenue because I had the contacts and had the ability. So it's outsourcing or whatever. So it's just becoming very efficient with your time. So getting clear, then you've got to get free. So you've got to cut costs. You might have to make some tough changes. And we don't often do that unless we have a gun at our head. Well, I had a situation where I felt my marriage was worth saving. So I was motivated to make changes. And also, we just have to get going. As I said earlier, we've got to, before all the ducks lined up, we just got to step in and take a step of faith. So they're just some of the things around Halftime. And there's also something biblically that talks about, a lot of us will use excuses why we can't. And I like Paul talks about, I'm in chains and I'm in jail, but I'm still on assignment. So I don't know how many people listening today are in jail and still on, in chains that's stopping you from doing stuff. But it didn't stop Paul. So I think if you're passionate, really clear about where you want to go, what your dream is, your vision, you develop a plan, and then your mission is really, how am I going to get there? And usually you've got to build a team to do that. So So anyway, there's some of the thoughts that I've got. Jeff, I don't know if people have got questions, but certainly one of the questions I often get, we find now a lot of people are going after life balance, and I'm saying, I tried life balance and failed. I found that going after life balance is what the new age people do, and our wives like us to have life balance, but men, we're wired for adventure and challenge. So I'm saying work on finding your purpose, and then you'll get a balance with that to a level. But balance isn't an objective in itself. It becomes more of a selfish, because to have life balance, to help other people, I've got to get my hands dirty. I might have to endure some discomforts. So I had a defining moment that helped me change by the grace of God. Some of us, though, don't need to have the stresses and problems I had, but really believe that what we do through Halftime, and in the UK, Jeff can put you in touch with people that could coach you one-on-one or in a group to work through the sort of programs that we've talked about. And my book, someone here's asking the title of that, Jeff, Enriched Redefining Wealth. That's certainly, if people just Google it.
Could you hold it up to the screen just so everybody can
Yep.
see it clear? Enriched for Redefining Wealth.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
it's just,
good.
and it's a CEO story from business success to life success. And yeah, the first half is really my story. The second half is really your story, which is what I'm really motivated in, is helping you be everything that you can be. That's what I wanted to be as a catalyst coming on today, because if you can think about, you're going to be in that Steven Spielberg blockbuster at 100 million and get that script of your life going, you won't forget that. That was the guy that spoke about Steven Spielberg. That's the only thing you guys will remember in 12 months, right? I know, unless you buy the book. And you can Google the book and buy an ebook or an audio book, or my daughter lives in London and we've got some copies over there that, you know, Jeff could get one. So if anyone wants to just let us know you want a copy, we can get a copy to you. So, but happy to take any more questions, Jeff.
Great. Anybody have any questions? You can type them in the Q&A box. And really good, John. You know, John, one of the things that we teach in our business is about having a clear, concise mental picture. And it is amazing how that when you find the want to, the desire, the how to kind of naturally happens. Yeah. And yet most people are focused on, tell me the steps. And you go, okay, well, where do you want to go? Well, I really don't know where I want to go. I just want to know what the steps are. Well, the steps could take you anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And the 13 things, I've got that in chapter 6 of my book. I actually go through and tell you the 13, you know, I bare my soul and make a bit of a fool of myself. But that's where my daughter helped in the book writing. She said, Dan, you need a bit of dirt in each chapter. You're going to say all the things that went wrong. So my book is a bit of a confession about all the things I stuffed up. So I talk about all the things that went wrong, because you don't want to hear it. There are plenty of books on success. So the first half is really some wins I had, but also where I stuffed up. And I do mention the whole 13 things in chapter 6. Chapter 11, I go through the 7 principles to make your second half, you know, in how do you move from that. And some people do need some how to, but really, I believe the key thing is getting clear vision for what you're getting, a vision statement for your life. And then how do you achieve it? Now, I know people have different definitions for mission statements and vision statements, and so that's all fine. But I feel that my mission statement that I came up in my early 40s was to create and develop ideas to motivate people to grow God's kingdom in the marketplace, and for people to reach their full potential in Christ. So that was my mission. That was my vision statement. But my mission was, how do I achieve that? Well, I thought if we plant churches and raise leaders was one thing I thought I could do. Second, I could coach and mentor business people like myself whose lives were in a mess, and help them save their marriages and get their business aligned to their life purpose. And the third leg of that was really about getting people to be generous rather than hoarding their assets and time and skills for themselves. there are so many people who retire when they should be really helping the next generation. But you've got to, but I found I had to relearn. I spent 12 years at school from, age, 5 to 16 or 17. Then some people go on and do another 4 years, or some people spend 20 years for life one learning for a 30-year career. But I found I had to do 14 years learning to make a career from age 40 to my mid-50s to set me up for my next 20 or 30 years. And so one of the things I find, people are either too lazy to invest in reinventing themselves, or they're often more than that, it's usually they're fearful and scared. And this is where we got to encourage one another and upskill, and then we can be useful, because the world keeps changing. So the beauty is today, you don't need to go to university. You can go to Dr. Google and learn things really quickly.
Very good. John, I just noticed on Amazon that your book is on audio.
Yep. Yeah, you can get it on audio on Amazon. Yeah.
Okay. And if they want to order it for print, can you get us those details?
Yes, if they come back to you for print, obviously I've been selling them in Australia, and I sold them in America, and Jess had a whole stack of them. So we've probably got a few in London. So if there's a few people,
okay,
we might have 10 copies that we.
I'll talk to Jess and see how they can order it and get the details out to them. Okay.
Yep, happy to do that.
All right. Well, John, one last question I have for you, and I'm asking this because of our Genistar people on here. Recently, you and I had a discussion. Someday I would like to take Genistar, which really is focused on helping others, and move it outside of the UK. And you built an insurance business and you sold it, and you've been out of that for a few years now. But I'd love for us to continue our discussion about how could we potentially open up Australia with financial education and financial literacy, and being able to really help empower people.
I love what you do with Genstar, and I think I built 65 franchises in around different parts of Australia. And I think what you're offering in financial education is a huge gap in the market. And, I'm pretty time poor, but I've got people that I know that could, when you're ready to explore that as a way, because, I think it's, and the way you've put the business model together, I think is exceptional. So,
well, it'd be exciting. I've never been to Australia myself. I probably have got some people on here with Genistar that if they would, especially they go build a business here where they've got a passive income, because everybody thinks the grass is greener on the other side, right? Well, boy, if I was just in America, or if I was just in wherever, then I could really win. But, we've got some great leaders here that are really rising up over the next couple of years, that I could see them coming over to Australia to really get.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
That, and any way I could help and be part of that, it'd be, love to do that, and just love your culture and your values, and the way you're a blessing to so many people through the business, which is, the business is a great vehicle because it gives us influence, and as we're doing our business and helping people, we can also impact them with our own faith and beliefs, because we've got a whole culture out there where people are lost and they're looking for meaning and purpose. And we're in a very privileged position that could do that. So I could learn from you guys, in that.
John, we have another question here. Does Halftime operate online only?
Actually, we're just in the US and in Australia, we're just starting virtual halftime program. And so we have got somebody in the UK who's just been trained to facilitate to run that. So yes, the answer is yes. It's only just coming out now though. So if you're interested, we run a 10 coaching sessions, 3 one-on-one and 6 in a group on a monthly basis, or seven actually, 6 monthly and then a 3-month gap. So yeah, definitely we'd be able to, yeah, we're doing that in groups of 10. And yeah, it's a fantastic online 90 minutes at a time. So, yep, if they want to come back through you or come, you know, back to me and send me an email or, so my email address, if anyone wants it, is john.sikkema@halftime.org.au.
John, could you type that in the under?
Chat box.
That'd be great.
Yep. Yeah, I can put that in the chat box.
While you're doing that, I'm going to ask you another question. Do you have reservations working with people who are not of faith or / religious? By the way, guys, while John is typing that in, I would also suggest that what you do is you get a copy of not only John's book, but also the book Halftime by Bob Buford. And I know you can go on to Amazon and order that, Halftime by Bob Buford, Buford. Great book.
Yep.
And really, in my opinion, John, I don't know if you agree with this, I think that's a must read. You know, and if someone's not going to invest, you know, £7 or £9 or £10, they're certainly not going to invest a few £1,000s to be able to get the advanced coaching. And
that's right.
Everybody should read that book.
Well, that book's gone, you know, around the world, and most people who read it, it ends up getting read by about 3 other people, because everybody who reads it ends up giving it to some. Like, to me, the test of a good book is, I mean, I buy books sometimes when I'm catching a plane and I read it and I think I'm halfway through it or a quarter and I'll leave it on the plane. I just donate it. I wouldn't give it to anyone else, right? When you have a book you read that you give to friends, the Halftime book is a book you want to give to 2 or 3 or 4 friends. It's like your book. You know, I've given it to so many people because it's something that you want to pass on. And so the Halftime book's one of those. So I believe that that's the test of a good book. And it's one that people read and put on the shelf, and 10 years later, they're ready for it. They're saying, I wasn't ready to do what it said, but it never left me. And so I find that's really powerful. So to answer the question, we've got probably 2/3 of the people who go through our program are Christians, church-going people, or probably 50% are church-going. Others sort of have a belief, but there are some people who are not Christians, and that's fine. It's not a Christian, you know, that you have to be a Christian. It's not like a church-going thing or whatever. It's a business program.
Yeah.
If you want to get clarity on purpose and you want to leave a legacy and whatever, and as long as you're comfortable with the fact that, because you've got to come from some persuasion anyway, you've got to come from some basis of whatever it is. So. But unashamedly, you know, I'm a Christian, so I'm comfortable with it. But I've got people that aren't clear and not sure about those issues, and it's a very safe place. And I've had people host the program and attend it, and who very love the program, who are not church-going Christian people.
That's great. John, thank you so much for being with us today on our final session. I don't know how we could have capped it off better. If I was going to label today, would be how to leave a lasting legacy. And so I hope that all of you have really enjoyed John Sikkema. Again, he's one of my dearest friends, great mentor, and that's really what I've tried to do over the last 12 weeks is to expose all of you to some great people that I have met in my life, some resources. All of these videos are on jeffletts.co.uk. We're in the process of redoing that website to where, but all of these videos are on there free of charge. And of course, I've encouraged everybody, get in touch with the people that I've had on here, the resources that they have, order a copy of John's book. You know, again, and Bob Buford's book, Halftime. So thank you all so much for joining us. John, thank you so much for staying up till midnight there. And really appreciate your friendship and your counsel, your wise counsel over the years.
No, that's great. Great to spend with you, Jeff, and all your listeners and viewers tonight. So, yeah, look forward to continuing our dialogue, and love to
Right.
see Jen Star over here one
Thank
day.
you.
So, bless you. Thank you
God
for your
bless.
time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.